Please could we be given warning at the beginning of a programme if there's going to be anything about the Beatles, as all Beatle fans can make sure to listen, and have a chance to ring up other fans to make sure they are also listening.
Hi everybody, this is John here. This is Paul, George,
and Ringo.
And we're very happy to be on your program once again.
Hello everybody, I am talking to the multi-talented author Dave Schwensen.
I'm already laughing. Multi-talented? Okay.
Hey, you're the comedian, not me.
I'm a comedy coach.
Okay. Comedy coach? Okay. He's the author of Beatles at Shea Stadium, Beatles in Cleveland.
The home of the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame.
He's also a comedian.
Comedy coach. I always correct this. Now, I work behind the scenes in television in New York and Hollywood. I do get up. I do some programs myself, but I'm more probably better known as a behind the scenes guy.
Okay. This is the first time you and I have talked. I think we have ever, other than Beatlefest, because we've met at Beatlefest before. But
and aren't you? You make an appearance in my Beatles at Shea Stadium book.
I know, that's true.
There you go.
That's true. I do.
So we go back quite a ways. You and I are old friends.
We are, but we're here to talk about one of his books, the Beatles in Cleveland book, which is getting updated.
Yes.
And when's this going to happen, Dave?
It's been something I've been working on for a long time. The original book came out, I think, in 2007. I do a lot of programs and people want the book. But ever since then, it's just a great thing about the Beatles. And you know this too. We're always finding out new stuff.
Yeah.
For instance, I did a program and I do it around the different Beatle fests and different places I go. But this was one around Cleveland, the Beatles in Cleveland. It was in a suburb called Rocky River, Ohio. And I show a video of the concert. The Beatles performing at Cleveland Stadium, very rare video. You can find little clips here and there, but I put together a really nice video of it. Anyway, there's a policeman that appears in the video. He's helping get the kids off the field, and he's very close up, and he's right there. I was doing this program, and this guy walks in. I'd say he's about 50 years old or so, and he shows me this picture. He says, "Have you ever seen this before?" It was a picture of the guy in the video, the policeman. I said, "He's in the video I show." He goes, "That's my dad, and this is him." And he's 80 years old, and he's standing there. I'm like, "You were on the field?" "Oh, yeah, I was in their hotel room. I was guarding them. I went to the stadium. I was with the Beatles. We had lunch together. We blah, blah, blah." I'm like, "Are you kidding me?" So at the end of my program, I always have time for questions, answers, and things like that. Anyway, so I wound up doing a long interview with him. And so I'm going to have his story in the updated book.
That's good.
Actually, really big things like that.
You're right about the whole thing. It never stops.
No.
I just talked to Mark Lewison within the past month or two, and everybody's waiting for his last two books, and that's the reason why he keeps finding out stuff. Yeah. And he's not going to stop until it's done. And I
talked to him at the Chicago Beatle Fest years ago, and we're talking. He had read my book, The Beatles at Shea Stadium. I was like flattered because he's the number one guy as far as I'm concerned. He's the number one. And I said, "When's your next book coming out?" And he goes, "Oh, it could have been like 2020. I said, "I might get hit by a bus or something. I got to read this now." I'm still waiting. Next time you talk to him, tell him that Dave still was worried about getting hit by a bus and I might miss the next volume.
You should watch the interview I did.
Hey,
he answers that question very, very explicitly. In fact, I re-asked him that question several times at the end. I stayed on him on that one. And he was very happy to answer it. He knows the question is coming and he's concerned. He is concerned. He says, "I have to worry about my life. He doesn't want to die without having it done."
Yeah.
Actually, you should watch that interview.
I will. I'm going to cut you short and go watch that.
Anybody that hasn't seen the interview I did with Mark Lewison, it's on YouTube.
I will definitely watch that.
Cleveland was a very interesting situation. In fact, I had a couple of people that were at the show on my show a couple of shows ago because I was doing a whole Beatles live thing.
Yes.
How is it getting? Obviously, you're facing the same kind of problems, difficulties that other researchers into Beatles stuff are having now. Is years are going on, people are not remembering, people are dying. How are you dealing with all this stuff?
Fortunately, the Beatles, the original interviews and stuff were done, of course, with everyone still alive. My wife has told me, you better not write any more books because these people, once you interview them, they're gone. But no, there's still some around, like we just mentioned, the girls you spoke with, and they have such great memories and great things like that. And it's something, like I said, the original book came out in 2007. So I wrote the Beatles at Shea Stadium a few years after that. But when I was doing my programs, I kept finding new people who would be at my programs. And I realized, for example, the opening group for the Beatles on the 1966 tour was the Remains. Okay. I interviewed Barry Tashian for the first book, and he's in there and all this great stuff. And then I wound up finding Bill Briggs, the keyboard player. Okay. And we did a long interview. He was real interesting, and I have his stuff in there, but he has since passed away. So I was fortunate to talk to him before that.
And Chris Tash, who is the Chris we were talking about, who is in the new book, wrote a book-length memory
Oh, it's
paper
excellent.
back then. She wrote it back then, and it's an amazing piece of work because she sent it to me, and I was like, "Wow!"
Oh, yes. She sent it to me too, and we talked, we back and forth messages so I can use it in the book. And so what's fascinating about it is she has times in there. At the time, this happened at 2 o'clock. This happened at 2:15. This kind of stuff. Oh yeah, it's that really put together because there were one of the biggest mysteries, and this happens, I think, everywhere the Beatles ever performed. All the rumors. Oh, the Beatles snuck out. They snuck out of a hotel. They went to have dinner at somebody's house. Don't give me those stories. I know they did the 1964 at the Ed Sullivan Show. They had the guy's yacht. They went out on that. And I know they were in Arkansas playing cowboy during, but I don't, people had come up and told me this about Cleveland. And no, it's
No.
a no. And the fact is that these people I interviewed with their times and different things and sightings and all this stuff in there. So I devoted a whole chapter to that. And even I talked to the promoter, Norman Wayne, who has also passed away since. I asked him about it. I asked a promoter from the Pittsburgh concerts and all this stuff, and I got all their takes on it. So yeah, it's very helpful. So yeah,
But Cleveland also had something unusual in that they stopped the show.
both concerts.
Right.
Yes.
Because the fans just got too wild.
When I first started writing this Cleveland book, honestly, the whole thing started out as just for myself. I was there. I saw the Beatles at the Cleveland Stadium, 1966, and I always talked about what a great experience, brag about that. I was a kid, I was a 13-year-old kid talking about this forever. And one night I was writing reviews for newspapers too. And one night I thought I better write this down so I don't forget what I remember of this. And so I did. And as I kept researching, I started hearing from people. I put it on my website, my comedy website, thecomedybook.com. Hey, because I have reviews of comedians and some of the bands I was reviewing. Here's what I remember of the Beatles concert. And really, I started getting emails the very next day. People saying, hey, can you tell us more? This is really about the Beatles live. But then I started contacting or hearing from people who were there also. And then when I started researching, I realized stuff that happened in Cleveland didn't happen anywhere else. Both concerts in Cleveland were stopped after the third song. 1964, public auditorium, third song, boom, police were on stage, pushing the Beatles off stage. The kids were out of control. They were going to cancel that concert. They were walking out the back door and they were stopped and pulled back in because it's in the book, a couple DJs calmed the kids down. The Beatles came out and finished the show. Then they were banned from coming back in 1965 because the mayor said that's not the way little girls should behave in public. So the Beatles were not allowed to go to Cleveland in 1965, the home of the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, right? They're banned. And they finally came back in 1966 because they got canceled in Louisville. They're supposed to be down there. That got canceled. And so they worked it out to come back to Cleveland. And again, the show was stopped. The kids got up on the stage. They were grabbing their jackets and a drumstick right out of Ringo's hand. And they had to stop that concert or delay it. They brought it back out to finish. But yeah, another thing that's so different about it too, I would always watch the videos, the famous the Shea Stadium concert or Candlestick Park. Nobody knew the Beatles were there until they were introduced. And then they come running out of the dugout. And everybody screams and go, what they did in Cleveland before the show even started, they opened the left field gates.
Wow.
They got out of the car, they're waving all the kids like this. Kids are screaming, go out. Then they turn around, they walk over. There was a trailer behind the stage on second base. They went in the trailer. They were in there for all the opening acts. Every kid in the stadium knew where the Beatles were. And so anytime anyone peeked out of a curtain, it's been screaming and going wild and all this stuff. That didn't happen anywhere else.
No. God.
No.
You said there was a film that you used in your talk?
When I started researching that book, it was really the first thing the internet was around, but I put it out there to Beatles fans. Some Beatles, yeah, I'm putting together in Cleveland. Anybody have any memories or film or pictures? And people were sending me stuff. What I've done for both concerts, I don't have the complete concerts, but I've taken the highlights that were sent to me and I put it together. I can do 5-6 minutes of each concert with still pictures and the videos, the kids running newsreels, that kind of stuff. I actually have video of the police stopping the concert at 1964 Public Hall, which is very rare. And I always make sure when I show it in my programs, I tell everybody, I do it for schools, okay, libraries, things like that. And I tell everyone, I don't want to see anyone's cameras out. Phones, you don't pictures. If you will, I will shut this off. But I've also done it for a lot of seniors, okay, the original OG fans. I just got back from Florida doing it a lot. There's a lot of us down there. And I tell them, I say, all right, I'm looking at you guys right now. You don't know how to work your phones any better than me, but just keep it in your pocket. You can't film this. Once I was doing this program, I did it at the House of Blues in Cleveland. Okay, it was big. It was a big benefit show. They had me come in to do the Cleveland program I do. And I'm standing on this big stage, the House of Blues, the place is packed and everything. I'm looking way up in the balcony and a mezzanine up there, and I see a light. Somebody's filming me. Okay. And I'm showing this film on a big screen. So as soon as I got off stage, I went to security. I said, there's someone up there. They know they're not allowed to do this. And we went up there and we found it was a girl and she'd been filming it. And the security guys, and it was a camera, but they made her erase it.
Ooh, wow.
Yeah. And she was like, well, but I was there. I was there. I'm like, I'm sorry. I don't own that. That was given to me by someone who did film it. And I have permission to show this, but it's not my film. That's why I'm not going to give you a copy or anyone else a copy. It's not mine. I'm allowed to show it though.
Wow. That's
yeah. I was scared of it. I didn't want that to get out. But
so how far into the expansion of the book are you?
It's not like I'm under any deadlines, but I have finished the manuscript. It is done. It's over 400 pages. Beatles in Cleveland is about 190 some pages.
Yeah.
Like Mark Lewison. You can get the book, but now this is the author's edit. So if you get just the book here, I even brought out a copy of the book like this, and it's 190 pages. Okay. And right now it's over 400, and I haven't even added the photos yet and the index, that sort of thing.
I want it in my hands right now.
It's a thing. I haven't worked on it since January. So now that I'm back, I've been traveling. I've just been traveling. I've only been home for 3 days now. And I will pull it out probably tonight and I'll reread it because I'll do a proofreading of it again. And the last time I did this, I'm like, it's pretty good.
You realize that getting the word out here, like here, you might have people going, we want that book, Dave. And if I get any letters, I'm forwarding them to you.
Yes.
I am.
People can always find me on there. And I even have a Beatles in Cleveland Facebook page. And they can always
you're gonna have, but it's good. I mean, it's good. It's nice to be wanted. It is.
It's the Beatles and it's fun.
Yes.
And like I said, this is like a hobby for me. It is just something I work on late at night, but I'm taking my own time. There's no deadline for me to do this.
Yeah. This whole, you keep hearing this, talking to researchers, to people involved with history, Beatle history. There's just, it never stops.
Everybody has a story, their own point of view for what they remember.
Right.
And the ones that were with them. It's so much fun. Like I said, the ones I interviewed people that toured with them. Bobby Hebb had the #1 song that summer, 1966, Sunny. Now he's no longer with us, but I interviewed him for the first edition of the book, and his memory is a little bit different than some of the other memories. And even the fans, they remember seeing things and hearing things are different and all this. And I put it all in there because a lot of it you can't prove anymore.
Yeah. They did not do a soundboard of either of those Cleveland shows, correct?
No, especially 1964, nothing like that. 1966, there's a bootleg kind of thing where they have little snippets of songs and things like that. But no soundboard, not like some of the Candlestick Park in 1966. They had that. Wasn't it Paul McCartney gave
Well,
Mal,
no, that was a tape done by, I believe
Not Neil or Mal had it.
it was Mal that did that one,
Yeah.
and they ran out of tape.
Yes.
They didn't have the full final song.
Long tall
But
Sally.
there are better tapes out there. The 65 Toronto tape,
Yes.
with Pierce Hemmingson has that one, and I've heard a little bit of that one, and they've offered that to Apple, and whether Apple will go for it or not is not known. But there are things being discovered out there, and
Yeah. That is so cool. I
yeah,
mean,
it is. Pierce told me that whole story, and it was just amazing to hear it, and the fact that it's possible that Apple may use it. Who knows? But we'll see. We'll see.
yeah.
I
I'll tell you,
like
I'll tell you a fascinating story about my Beatles Shea Stadium book. Now, do you know Michael Adams? Have you spoken to him? M. Clay Adams' son? M. Clay Adams.
no, no, I don't think so.
He was hired by the Ed Sullivan Productions, Ed Sullivan and his son-in-law Bob Precht to do the Beatles, that's TV special called The Beatles at Shea Stadium. Okay,
Right.
it was originally called The Beatles in New York. It's gonna be a whole documentary about them being in New York. But then you know the story with Brian Epstein and how protective he was of everything. 6 months after that Beatles at Shea Stadium program was aired, all the video, all the audio had to be destroyed. Okay. That's why rumors that John Lennon had gotten some videos of that. They sent it to him, but nothing's ever turned up. So all you have left of that Shea Stadium concert is what's in that
Sure.
documentary, that film.
Yeah.
Okay. That included the original soundtrack. Now, you know that was overdubbed that in January 1960, that was sweetened and all that stuff. And the audio is supposed to be destroyed. They found the audio 20 some years later in, I think it was Bob Fine is the audio guy that worked with them, Clay Adams. They found it in his basement. And Michael Adams, whose son, he has it. And that's, I have it. He sent it, he actually put the original sound under the video that his father had filmed. And he had been on the field. He was a 13 standing on the field watching all this. But I don't know how he brought that up, but that's how you discover new things. You don't know that it's out there, original stuff.
And they showed that in the theater showings of 8 days a week.
Yeah, and
And
that's not that original sound. That was the overdubbed.
but it still sounded good. You saw it and I saw it, and it sounded great. I wouldn't necessarily have a problem having that version.
Oh no, it sounds great. And the thing is too, with the original version, now again, that's something I show clips of that during my programs. I would show them, okay, do you want to hear what it really sounded like when they played I'm Down with John on the organ? You want to hear what that really sounded like? So I have the original and I show that to close out my program. It's, I said, they don't sound that bad, but they just didn't have the capability, technology to record these things. And the whole bit was they're a beat group. It's in their name, Beat. And the bass would kind of come in and out. You couldn't hear the drums that well, the beat of it. But yeah, it's other stuff that keeps coming out.
The technology back then was what it was. And I don't know if this is a fair comparison, but the Elvis Epic movie, have you seen that?
I'm dying to see that. I'm a big
The sound on that is tremendous, and that's early 60s too. And
Yeah.
what they did with that was just crazy. It's
Yeah.
tremendous.
Even the new Beatles stuff, they get back and they redid the anthology. And I just recently watched that stuff because I don't get that channel. So I had to wait for my son to come home and he gets it. I'm like, hey, plug it into my TV. I can watch this. So really within the last month, I watched all those again. I'd seen them originally. But yeah, the sound is just great what they can do.
I hope they're planning on putting that thing out for public consumption for everybody to see it. Streaming seems to rule today, but I hope they put that thing out because the bootleggers have already done it, but we get to see that.
Yeah. And properly mixed and everything else. It would just be, yeah, the new technology.
Yeah, and I know because I've been in some of the groups on Facebook about the Elvis movie. They're just dying for the DVD of that thing. Although it's streaming now. You can buy it streaming. There's no extras, and I'm told there won't be.
Oh, that's wild. That's one of my bragging rights too. I saw Elvis when he was still skinny.
Did you?
Yes.
Where did you see him?
I saw him in Cleveland Public Auditorium. Same place
year?
the Beatles played.
What year?
I saw him in 1971.
So you saw him around the same time he was going to Vegas.
He did the Vegas comeback, what, in 1969? And then he did some.
Right.
And I was a diehard, oh my God, Elvis fan. And so I saw him and I said, yeah, he was still the thin Elvis. I thought about this today too. I mean, again, I'm on different subjects, but I just finished reading a book. I think Bob Spitz wrote this book on Led Zeppelin, and I
Yeah,
just finished. Okay, during my walks, I'm listening to audiobooks, and so now I'm, of
I
course,
am too.
okay. So
We
I have
both
to
are.
listen to Led Zeppelin. So today I'm here listening. I got Zeppelin going all the time, and I remember it was public auditorium in Cleveland. I see all the concerts. I saw everybody there, and but I saw Elvis, and I also saw Led Zeppelin there. And I
Hmm.
also remember Elvis's voice just filled. It came out, it was like, wow. And the same thing with Robert Plant. Wow. Just overpowering, that kind of stuff. Anyway, I thought I'd bring it.
Yeah, Plant's voice was tremendous back
Mhm.
then.
But I will throw into the worst concert I've ever seen in my life was Led Zeppelin.
No kidding.
Oh, they were horrible.
Really?
I
Come on.
didn't need a half
Are
hour
you putting
drums.
me?
I'm not. It was the worst concert. I've gone on record for that. It's on my website. I've put places like that. I mean, I saw everybody. I saw everybody you could really see. The Who, the Beatles, the Rolling Stones, all these people. Oh God, Led Zeppelin was awful. Just yeah. Zeppelin was a big disappointment. And there was kind of stuff behind it. John Paul Jones' father had passed away during this tour, so the Cleveland show was supposed to start at 8 o'clock, and they're supposed to play 3 hours. They started at 4 o'clock, and they only played like an hour and a half or something. Everybody's booing, and
Mm.
they tried to do it was Led Zeppelin 3, which I loved. I like that album. They're trying to do too much acoustic stuff. And again, I don't need a John Bonham drum solo for half an hour. And I don't need Jimmy Page doing all this violin stuff on. Come on, give me a show. So yeah, that's my review. Led Zeppelin.
I did see some great shows because we used to go to Winterland in San Francisco,
Oh,
where they
awesome.
where they ended up having the last waltz, which I
Yeah.
didn't go to. It's fun to remember and to see old printouts and advertisements from those days. Some of the
Uh-huh.
bills that they used to have then. It was crazy. I
Oh
mean,
yeah. You see those once in a while on Facebook. Here's the lineup for this summer at such and such a place, and you look like, man, it's everybody I'd ever want to see,
yep,
one after another. Yeah, those
yeah.
were great. I got to see a lot of those bands when I was like a teenager and early 20s, and saw the Who destroy all their instruments on stage.
I never saw the Who destroy their instruments. However, I was at the Cow Palace concert when Keith Moon passed out.
Oh, they brought up the extra drummer, the
They
guy.
brought up the extra drummer. We were fairly close to the stage, but it wasn't me because the guy is dead. But
Yeah.
I remember hearing, I don't, in fact, I'm not sure if I remember hearing Townsend ask for somebody, but I do remember them saying that he was not doing well.
I got
Yeah.
one more story along these lines. In Cleveland, they were going to go see, it was a big Christmas concert. They used to line up all these different bands. And the headliner was supposed to be Mountain. Remember Mississippi
Yep.
Queen?
Leslie West. Yep.
Mountain was supposed to be. Anyway, they made this announcement. Mountain was snowed in Pittsburgh. They weren't able to get out. Everybody's got all this stuff that says, but we have someone else for you to fill the spot or whatever. Ladies and gentlemen, Little Richard. Are you joking me? I'd rather see Little Richard than Mountain. I mean, my God, he was wild. It was one of the greatest
Was
shows.
he really?
He was standing on top of the piano. He was taking his clothes off. He was singing. He did the full Little Richard thing, and we just were, that's right up there. That was great.
I never saw Little Richard. However, one of my favorite acts, and I saw him, I don't remember how many times, was Jerry Lee.
Oh, I would love that.
And my great story about Jerry Lee is we went to see him one night. My friend at the newspaper was reviewing him, so we all had good seats. We were right up front. And I actually sat in the very front row because this is the one time I have a chance, I'm going to do it. And it was clear during the whole show that he did not like the piano. He hated it. You could tell. He kept grumbling all night. He kept pointing at the keys. We could tell he wasn't happy. He sounded okay to me, but
Yeah.
I don't know what the problem was. So before the last number, he had a bottle sitting next to him on the table next to the piano. Before the last number, he gets up, picks up the bottle, and goes like this, like he's going to hit the piano. The thing is, if he had hit the keys, the glass would have hit me. Fortunately, he didn't do that. That was a little scary. That was
Okay.
he,
Sounds.
he did shake my hand after the show, so that was good. But yeah, I'm still to this day, I'm a very big Jerry Lee fan. I love Jerry Lee.
I put my arm around Chuck Berry once and he did not punch me.
I saw Chuck Berry too, and I saw Chuck play a show with a bunch of locals, and he sounded really good. I was surprised.
That's how he used to do. He would show up with his guitar and he'd have a local band. And I saw him in college and he invited a bunch of, he was going like this, waving people. I was in the front row come up on stage to dance. I grabbed the hand of a girl next to me, I grabbed her, said, let's go. We ran up on stage and we're dancing to Chuck Berry. And when he finished the song, the other people went off the stage and I stayed up there with a couple of my buddies and he was talking in a microphone and I'm standing, I got my arm around Chuck Berry like this. And whenever he started playing, we're all real, it was wow, it was a college show. But I remember afterwards, after the show was over, we're standing on stage going, wow, how great. And some kid I went to high school with years before had been sitting way in the back of the auditorium. He made his way all the way to the front and he goes, Dave, you were great. So yeah.
Mr. Schwensen, thank you very much. Anything, are you doing anything with Shea Stadium?
I do these programs. If you go to BeatlesProgram.com, but if you go to BeatlesSheaStadium.com or BeatlesInCleveland.com, it takes you all to the same place. And
Okay.
it talks about my program. I do webinars for schools and I do live programs. It's like an hour program. And I combine the two of them. I have a program called The Beatles Making the 1960s Fab. But yeah, I do the Shea Stadium program and I do a program about Cleveland.
So are you going to expand the book at all?
I really researched even the making of the television special. Okay. I was just going to write about the build up to the concert, how it all happened, Sid Bernstein and all that stuff. And then it kept snowballing into all this other stuff. Again, Michael Adams he has all the information about the secret recording sessions. And then I had the original editing notes for the television special, what it
And
looked.
you had some unseen photographs in that book.
Oh yeah.
I remember that because I remember talking to the photographer.
Yes. But yeah, especially the last maybe third of the book now is the making of the television special, which was very interesting. I have telegrams in there, like Brian Epstein and Bob Precht sending. Brian Epstein gave approval for this television special. It was finished a month after the Beatles did the show, but then he showed it to George Martin and the Beatles, and they said no. So the telegrams are going back and forth, and that's all in there. It's called false advertising. You can't redo it. Tough. We're going to do it anyway. You can't show it. And it was rejected by NBC, and they finally got ABC to play it. But,
Wow.
yeah. So all that stuff's in there.
They're out there. Those books are on Amazon.
Yes.
Are both in Kindle?
Both in Kindle.
They're both in ebook form, if that's your thing. But yeah, they're both great.
Thank
Well,
you.
again, good luck with the expanded Cleveland, and I want to see it tomorrow.
Like I said, I got a whole bunch of new photographs. I just have to make sure those are formatted in there and it all makes sense. And then we're going to go with it, hopefully by this summer. I got to get it done. I got to move on to something else now.
Okay. You just told me as we were talking here that you had a private concert by the Monkees.
Yeah, I just sort of dropped that in the conversation, didn't I?
Yes, you did.
How that all evolved is now, again, I've written the 2 books on the Beatles. I've written 6 books altogether. My first book is called How to Be a Working Comic. It's a business book for comedians. I interviewed Micky Dolenz. He's in the book. He's in the first edition of it because he'd been on a sitcom, a comedy sitcom, and I wanted to have that experience because a lot of comics want sitcoms. So I'd interviewed Micky. And then they were coming up to do a concert tour, and I hooked it up through the same company, whatever it was, and I interviewed Davy Jones.
Mm-hmm.
And again, just like you talked to Mike Nesmith for like an hour and a half, Davy and I talked for a long time. And we just had this great conversation. It was just a lot of fun. And when we finished, they were opening the show, the concert tour in Cleveland, where I was living at the time. And they were rehearsing the night before the opening of the concert in a club in Cleveland. It's on the east bank of the Flats, if you know the Cleveland area. It's called the Odeon.
Okay.
And Davy invited me. He says, hey, do you want to come to our rehearsal? We're doing it the night before. I'll put you on the list and get in. I said, yeah, that'd be great. I'm a big Monkees fan, of course. My wife, Debbie, and me. And so the night of the rehearsal thing, and I thought all the journalists from Cleveland, the Plain Dealer, the Cleveland Magazine, I thought everybody be there. Come on, he's got to invite everybody. We showed up at the Odeon, my wife and I, and the guard's there, and he goes, he looked and he goes, hey, Davy's friend is here. I said, I'm not his friend. I don't really know him. I just talked to him. He said, hang on. And he went in, he came back. He said, can you come back in about like 20 minutes? I said, sure. So my wife and I went down the corner. We had a drink real quick, came walking back in. He was waiting for us. Yeah, come on in. We walked in. The Monkees was Micky, Davy, and Peter, and their backing band were on a stage at the Odeon. They had 2 bar stools right in front of the stage. Boom, right there. Have a seat. There was no one else there. I saw there was a guy working behind the bar doing something. The club wasn't open. Maybe there was one row. That was it, just the band and the 2 of us. And we sat there, and they played all these Monkees hits. And they were playing right to us. I mean, like looking at us, playing these songs. It got to the point where it was like uncomfortable. And so my wife, Debbie, and I were like, okay, they're playing us. We took our bar stools and we pulled them all the way in the back of the club. So we're sitting back there. So we're like not right in front. We were like 5 feet in front of these guys. We're sitting way back there. We're watching this. They took a break, and the three of them came over to where we're sitting to hang out, to talk to us.
Three, what? Now, wait a minute. Mike wasn't there?
This was when Mike wasn't touring with them. So I don't know.
Oh, okay.
I don't think Mike ever toured with them when Davy was performing. I always thought that was because I know he showed up once in Hollywood dressed like a Santa Claus for something.
Right. Well, I mean, other than talking about the early days, okay, this is the period when it was just the three of them.
Oh
Because
yeah, yeah.
I saw the last tour with Davy,
Davy
Peter, and
and
Micky.
Micky. Yeah. Matter of fact, yeah, and they came back and hung out with us. And I had interviewed Mickey. It was in my book. I interviewed Davy for newspapers. I gave him that, and Peter's like, "How come you never talked to me?" I'm like, "Oh, I don't know. I just haven't." And then Peter took me on stage and he showed me all their equipment, kind of gave me a tour around there. And my wife, of course, had a teenage girl crush on Davy Jones during the Monkees. So I'm like, okay, I just introduced you to Davy. Yeah, it was really, really, really cool. All three of them autographed the newspaper article I had. So I had that hang in my office for a long time. And yeah, my private concert with the Monkees.
Private
There was no other journalists there. I mean, I thought the other big shots would all be there. Nobody. It was just, he invited me and my wife. And yeah,
You remember did they play everything?
yeah, they played everything. Daydream Believer, I'm a Believer, I'm Not Your Stepping Stone, the whole thing. I mean, my gosh, it was right there. We had a concert by the Monkees.
And you
And
don't have a tape.
no, I didn't tape it. I mean, I didn't have,
No, I know. I'm giving you a bad time. I'm
yeah.
just saying
But,
you don't have a tape of it, unfortunately. Too bad.
but I do have, for then the concert part that we went to, and we went backstage. We had backstage passes after that too. And we took my son, Paul. Now, Paul was he wasn't even 1 year old at the time. And my son Paul he's been on Broadway. He starred in the Book of Mormon. He's done all this stuff. I'm a showbiz dad. Okay. So I had him
Okay.
backstage with him. So I have a picture, I have a couple pictures of Paul being 1 year old. I'm holding in my arm. My wife Debbie's holding him. And like one of them, Mickey's standing with us and he's got a Beck's beer. And my little son is reaching over for the Beck's beer like this. So I have that picture.
Oh,
And
wow.
then I got a picture of the three of us with Davy standing there. So I tell everyone, yeah, they go, well, my son Paul, what's his first concert? Here's the picture. He's hanging out backstage with the Monkees. So
Wow. That's a great story. Hey, everybody. I just spent about an hour or so listening to the new McCartney album, Boys of Dungeon Lane. And my impressions are pretty spectacular. This is a great album. It really is. And I don't say that lightly. The songs are energetic. There's some rockers, there's some ballads, there's some Beatle moments. It's just a great album. Let me go through the songs one by one. All right, I'm going to start with As You Lie There, which opens the album. It starts out with Paul asking, As you lie there, do I ever cross your mind? And then I'd like to think we'll be together forever. And turns into a blistering guitar solo. It's a beautiful song. It's a gorgeous love song to Nancy. And it's also a great rocker. And it's a great start to the album. The next track is Lost Horizon. That's another rocker. It's quite energetic. Paul sings, That sound can take me back to the Lost Horizon. This is a Paul McCartney that sounds so motivated and confident. The production is full and rocking. And the motivated and confident description really goes through the whole album. He sounds really, really motivated and confident with this album. The next is the single, Days We Left Behind, which is really kind of the theme of the album about his past. Nothing ever stays, nothing comes to mind, no one can erase the days we left behind. It's a great first single. Next one is Ripples on the Pond, and it's an up-tempo song, and I'm also wondering if it's another ballad to Nancy, because it says, let's carry on making ripples in the pond, we'll see how far it goes, and begins and ends with, sometimes I think you're so good for me, I must be blessed, let's carry on making ripples in the pond, we'll see how far it goes. As I said, it sounds like another rocker to Nancy. It's really great. Next is Mountaintop, which is one of my all-time favorites on the album because it's a slow rocker. And I envision this song as played live, and it would be as close to heavy metal as this album gets. It's really, really good. It has a nice echoey keyboard in the background. It speeds up into a very fast ending. I think it'll be very good live. And like I said, it's one of our favorites. Next one is Down South. And that's the Beatles song on the album. That's the song he sings to the other Beatles, and especially to John Lennon about their early days. It's similar to Days We Left Behind in form and delivery. And some of the Beatle references are it was a good way to get to know you, a fine way to work it all out. And let's see, I talked about guitars and rock and rolled. It's a subject that would never get old. It was a good way to get to know you before we learned to twist and shout. So this is his Beatles song on the album is Nod to the Beatles, and it's also a very good song. The next one is called We Two. It's a slow rocker. I thought it was a nice song, though not as dynamic as the previous ones. It ends with a psychedelic tape rewinding. Last night I dreamed of you and saw what we could do. We're standing side by side, we two came through. Next one is Come Inside. Paul sings this very enthusiastically, even with a trademark Paul shouts and up. It's a great little upbeat song. My life's an open book, come inside my mind. Next one is Never Know. It's a double track Paul vocal. It's very sweet. It's a very sweet song. Flutes come in several times, and at one point the flute leads to a strong guitar riff, and it ends very sweetly and solidly. Next is the second single, Home to Us. It's the duet with Ringo. Ringo has a very strong presence in the song, as you know, and it sounds to me like there's a traveling Wilburys type chorus in there. It's a contrast to Ringo doing the country songs as he does on his recent album, and it shows that he can still rock. Hopefully, he gets back to doing that in the future because he really sounds good on rocking songs. But one thing I wonder is this song may also be more for Ringo than for Paul because people in Liverpool still haven't forgotten the comments he made years ago about Liverpool, and they didn't sit well with them, as Spencer Lee and I discussed in the recent podcast, which you should go back and listen to. I'm wondering if really this is an effort to get in better stead with the people of Liverpool. I don't know, but the fact that Ringo is on it, I think, says a lot. Next is Life Can Be Hard. It's a nice, upbeat, sweet bopping chorus with an air of the 1940s because it has strings in one part and a clarinet in the other. Life can be hard, but that's when we start to put it back together again. First Star of the Right follows at the beginning of the track says it's raining in Costa Rica, and that doesn't, there's nothing in the rest of the song that really goes with that. So why he did that, I don't know. It's an upbeat double track vocal, and it's very nice. It's a good timey song. This is really what it is. Salesman Saint is an acoustic ballad with synthesized instrumentation added with spoken double track vocals on parts of the song by Paul. It's a ballad that is an ode to growing up in Liverpool. My father was a salesman. My mother was a saint. Worked every God-given minute to make enough to pay the rent. And the last song is called Mama Gets By. It's a love ballad. It's slow but emotional with both the song and the acoustic guitar. She loves him with all her heart and soul, all her heart and soul. Mama Gets By, Papa Gets High, Mama Gets By, the album concludes. The production is very sharp throughout the album. It's very well done. The lyrics, Paul has a tendency sometimes to get real spacey with his meanings and say things that don't make a lot of sense. Uncle Albert and Admiral Halsey, for example. But the lyrics here don't have a lot of that. They're all very well grounded, and I think that makes the album a little better myself. Overall, I think this will be a spectacular album for him. I think it'll get tons of great reviews, and I just think it's absolutely wonderful. This is a real classic. Not all of his albums have been classic, in my opinion. Some of his recent stuff has not been, but this is overwhelming. It really is. It's a great album, and you will love it. Until next time, this is Steve Marinucci saying, be seeing you. Hey everybody, it's been a heck of a day here at Beatle News Central. It's been all day long today. The big news the really big news is that the Beatles are going to open number 3 Savile Row in London as a museum next year. And that's incredible. That's an announcement that just blew everybody over. It'll have 7 floors of exhibits, rotating exhibits, and rare material, some of it never before seen. And they'll also have a model of the recording studio that was used for Let It Be. Paul and Ringo both commented with the announcement. Paul said, "It was such a trip to get back to 3 Savile Row recently and have a look around. There are so many memories within the walls, not to mention the rooftop. The team have put together some really impressive plans, and I'm excited for people to see it when it's ready." Nobody reported that they saw Paul. And Ringo had a much shorter announcement saying, "Wow, it's like coming home." And in a statement, Apple Corps CEO Tom Green said, "We're thrilled to bring back Apple Corps back to its spiritual home and give the Beatle fans something truly special. Every single day, fans are taking pictures of the outside of 3 Savile Row, but next year they can go in and explore all 7 floors of the iconic building, including the roof, where even the railings remain the same from that famous day in 1969. If you go to my Substack page, it's stevemarinucci.substack.com. I have some photos from Let It Be, and a photo that Dave Schwensen sent me of him outside the building. Probably the best part. There's about a clip from Let It Be that is absolutely incredible in quality. I kid you not. So it's worth it just to see that, I think. But anyway, that's number 1. Okay. Number 2, for the 60th anniversary of the Beatles Candlestick Park Concert Chronicle books will release The Beatles by Jim Marshall live at Candlestick Park 1966, featuring over 150 of Jim Marshall's photos from the event, about half never before published. Marshall was an incredible photographer. He photographed the scene that I'm sure you've all seen of the Beatles walking onto the field, but he also did a lot more, and we'll get to see that in the book. The Beatles by Jim Marshall presents these photographs at large scale and in the rich, high contrast tones Marshall preferred. In addition to the Candlestick concert photos, the book includes Jim Marshall's photos of the Beatles arriving at San Francisco airport, their opening act, the Ronettes, and their show at the San Francisco Cow Palace the previous year. It says here too are Marshall's own marked up proof sheets showing how he selected his iconic shots, as well as an in-depth essay by music historian Joel Selvin. The price on the book is $40. And even more Beatle news. We told you in a previous show about Chris O'Dell's upcoming podcast called Abbey Road to Tulsa Time. It begins next Tuesday, the 19th, and it'll feature Patty Boyd. And there's one piece of really sad news. Jack Douglas, who produced the John and Yoko Double Fantasy album and also produced albums for Cheap Trick, Aerosmith, Patti Smith, and tons of other people, died Monday at the age of 80. His daughter told Rolling Stone that he had died from complications of lymphoma. Our condolences to the family. He did some wonderful work. Well, it's time to go. We'll be back soon with another show that you will enjoy. You can contact me at BeatlesNewsBriefs@gmail.com. If you're on Facebook, join our Beatles News and Information page where I post stuff all the time. I have an update, by the way, on the Beatles Jim Marshall book will be out June 2nd. We look forward to seeing you next time. If you liked what we did today, please subscribe. It would help us an awful lot if you did. And tell your friends about us and tell them to subscribe. Anyway, this is Steve Marinucci saying, be seeing you.
Be seeing you.